who do you think could be the next Saban-like figure or Bama-like program? And when Nick Saban retires is really what we're talking about here. I'm going to use some meteorological terminology here. It's really basic, or otherwise I couldn't use it. I think this is an impossible question to answer. My short answer is I don't think we've got another Nick Saban run coming. I don't think we've got another run like Bama's been on coming. To be clear, that is winning over half a dozen national championships and running off a decade and a half, at least, stretch of just utter dominance, where you're either right there every year or you're winning it every year. I think it's going to be impossible to attain. It should be impossible for Nick Saban. But the atmospheric science portion of this comes in, and even if we did have that person out there, it would be impossible to predict that because it's impossible to predict a generational occurrence, or it's all but impossible to do it, because how do we predict things? All your mind is really doing when you're predicting something is your mind's going back and it's using historical data points to cross-reference against something in the present day or the future. So if you're looking at Ryan Day at Ohio State, or you're looking at Kirby Smart at Georgia, or Dabo Swinney, whoever you choose to put in this blank for your own answer, we would be taking that person and then we would be looking at critical data points. Well, the point is, if any of those guys even were showing whatever characteristics would be necessary to be better than Nick Saban, you wouldn't be able to recognize it because you wouldn't have any historical data points to go back on other than Saban himself, so that's one set. Other than that, who would you be comparing him to? No one else has even done what Nick Saban's doing. So there isn't this huge swath of statistical criteria with which to draw from. And so even if that person did exist right now, it'd be hard to pick him out. But secondly, and this is a little more in your face, maybe so much so that you don't realize it right now, Nick Saban, because of his greatness, is essentially slamming the door on this conversation once he leaves the sport. And what I mean by that is when Nick Saban came to Alabama, the sport was ripe for him to take it over. You thought Urban Meyer was in the process of doing it at Florida. It was really Saban who was about to come in and just totally hit the reset button. Whatever you thought constituted greatness in college football, he redefined it for you. Well, here's what else he did. Even though they've managed to remain dominant, when Nick Saban came in the picture, and then over the next 15 some odd years, he raised the standard for everyone. Think about your program. If you're a fan of a major program out there, think about how different your program is because of Nick Saban. It may not be in the win-loss column, but think about how differently you spend. Think about what you used to settle for that you don't settle for anymore. Think about how much more you spend, even when you adjust for college football inflation on staffers. Think about how much bigger your coaching staff is. Think about how much more of an investment you have in things like recruiting budget or facilities or nutrition or strength and conditioning. That stuff is at least partly due to Nick Saban and the standard that he set at Alabama. Well, here's what happens. What happens is when he leaves the sport in a much different way than he found it. When he came in, college football was ripe for someone like him to take it over. Even if you are like Nick Saban, and I doubt we have another one out there like him, even if you are like Nick Saban, the collective level of this game has raised so much that it's unlikely even another Nick Saban is going to come in and run off a string of success like he's run off. So for those reasons, I don't see it. What I think we'll see is I think we'll see periods. We'll see windows. You know what USC did in the early 2000s is a smaller microcosm of what Alabama's done for an extended period of time. I think we'll have those. There's no reason to believe, especially when Saban leaves, there's no reason to believe that Lincoln Riley couldn't run one off at USC or Ryan Day at Ohio State or you know, whoever, Brian Kelly, Jimbo Fisher, Steve Sarkisian, Brent Venables. Let me just name every program in America so no one thinks I'm leaving them out. Yes, there'll be windows where someone out there ends up winning 2 titles in 3 years or maybe even 3 titles in 7 years. I just don't think anyone's winning 6 of them over 15 or some odd years. I don't think we're going to see that. That is really hard to do.